I want to thank you for taking this time early in the morning to come here and do this podcast.
Yeah, no problem.
I really appreciate it. And I want to thank you for what you're doing for the club, being the club's official, unofficial historian, right? And you've been really going through the archives and everything and finding out things about the club that no one's ever known. The people here have not known. The people present day don't.
But it's so cyclical with the membership that even the people who do know, if they left and there's no record here, it's just a matter of trying to uncover the same stuff that people knew before and then getting it all together in one place. Yeah.
And the fact that the club has moved 3 times, right?
Yeah, geographically 3 times. But then on this space, we've had 3 different buildings.
3 different buildings on this.
So each time, I'm sure that there was some stuff lost. But
that's right. Well, let's start off by telling me where you're from.
I'm born California, but when I was 3, we moved to Michigan. So I kind of grew up in Grand Rapids, Michigan, which is a second largest city in Michigan on the west side. So it's kind of halfway between Detroit and Chicago, maybe a 3-hour drive on both sides. Grew up there, only really lived in that one place. And then in 2016, then came to Japan.
Okay, do you have siblings?
I've got one younger brother, yeah.
How many years difference?
About 5 years younger. Yeah.
Okay.
So he's doing well. He's out in Nevada now, Albuquerque, New Mexico. So he just moved recently. He's got those like off the grid living situations.
Really?
Yeah, so he's getting all into that and he's learning about all that
First
kind
of all,
stuff, so.
Why'd you move? Why'd you move from California to?
So my dad was in the Air Force, actually. He was at Traverse Base in Fairfield, and I was born on the base there. And then he just finished up his time and got a job as an electronics analyst in the Weather Service.
No, he didn't finish up 20 years. He finished up like 4 years.
Yeah, I think just the
regular
like
mandatory
officer
time
kind of thing. Yeah.
Oh, he was an officer?
He was an officer. Yep. And then
so he had more than 6 years.
Wrapped up. He did a quick 2 years in Korea when he was younger, and he did a lot of just it's like a radio tower in the middle of, I forget the name, it starts with a G, but there's a small province in southern Korea. Okay. It's just this isolated radio tower he was working on there for a while and volunteering with the local orphanage. And so when I told him I was moving to Japan, he was really excited because for him that was some of his favorite years of his life, was having that time outside of the States.
How are your parents doing?
They're good. Yeah, they're good. My dad's excited. He retires next month after about 35 years in the Weather Service.
So how old is your father now?
He's now born 65.
Okay, so he's in his
kind of mid to late 50s.
I was going to say yes.
Every time I go visit him, he's a little more gray.
All right.
Yeah, he's
where's he now? He's doing where?
They're in Grand Rapids now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep,
so he stayed in Michigan.
Probably stay there. It's a really nice city. It's a great city. If you don't mind the long winters, then it's a really, really pretty place, nice people. It's one of those cities where it's big enough that you have all the options that you want, but small enough where it still has that community feel. So it's kind of right there in the middle. It's got a very thriving craft beer scene now, so a lot of young millennials are moving in for stuff. So population's shooting up in the past couple of years, and
So when you grew up there, what was it like for you growing up in Michigan? So you said you were born in California, but you moved there. How old were you?
I was 3 years old.
Oh, so you don't remember any of that. So all you know is Michigan.
I feel like I'm a Michigander. Yeah.
Right. Okay. So what was it like?
It was good. I've only ever been there, so it's kind of hard to compare growing up in other places.
No, just tell me what was growing up for you like.
For me, I went to a charter school from about 1st grade to 8th grade. So most of my elementary, middle school years were at this one charter school with a class of about 55 kids. So I grew up basically with these same 55 kids for about 8 years.
8 years.
Yeah, and
so are you still close? Are you close with any of them?
I'm still very close with my core group of friends, but I think everyone else still kind of keeps in touch because those names and those faces still stick with you so strongly. So anyone at Cross Creek Charter Academy, yeah. And then after that, I went to East Kentwood High School. So Kentwood is a suburb in Grand Rapids, and they have one of the largest high schools in the state. And so it was from this class of 50 to one of the biggest high schools in the state. So that
Your brother did the same thing?
He did the same thing, yeah.
Okay.
So it was a big transition, but I think it was really healthy because there were just so many students there and so many opportunities too. We had really great sports. I was really involved in the music programs there, so I played tenor saxophone all through high school. And
wait, why didn't you tell me that? Wait. You know that's what I'm practicing.
Yeah. Well, we talked about it a little bit. I
yeah,
think,
but come on. All this time I could have been having you in there every now and then giving me tips.
I haven't played in a long time.
It doesn't matter.
The muscle memory is still there, I think. But
it has to be.
Yeah. So I did marching band, jazz band, and kind of the symphony for a little bit too. So.
What'd your brother do?
He started playing alto, and he played a little bit of clarinet, and then he switched to baritone saxophone. So he had range, and he was a much better player than me too. So when it came to jazz music, I could sight read great, but that music theory for soloing, for improv, it never clicked with me. So he spent some time really sitting down and studying the chords and things and how that moves. So I think he was a much better player than me. And then I really loved jazz band. And then in my junior year in high school, I got first chair in our jazz band, which is a state-renowned jazz band. And all of the previous first chairs all went on to be professional musicians, and they're all doing like commercials, or they're playing with these like Mariah Carey backup bands and stuff. And so I come in, and I just all the pressure, the big shoes to fill. So I lasted about a year, and then I switched over to art. And so I'd always been really involved in drawing a lot. I'd always felt like that's been kind of my natural calling. I love playing music, I love listening to music, but that kind of natural talent I felt like was more in drawing. So I switched over to a kind of college credit art class and was working on that stuff for a while. And I'd still like to play, yeah. But
the more I think about it, I'm just trying to, I'm getting to know you, Drew, because I see you just a little bit every now and then in the library. Your parents read to you a lot when you were a little kid, when you were small?
Yeah, my dad was really great at teaching me to read. So he taught me to read really young. And it was, I think, more out of an educational point of view. Like, it's really important to learn how to read. And I think I was like 4 years old when I started to be able to make out different phonics. But I think there was not so much of a culture in my house of like reading for pleasure. So that took a while to come to understand why it's important to read books and to read literature, that kind of thing. So I learned how to read. I could read really well. I had a decent vocabulary. I was always kind of okay at spelling. But most of my kind of elementary to high school was just being assigned books to read for homework and just kind of slogging through it, doing
so
my
you never
report,
took it for pleasure?
done.
You never took it as a pleasurable thing to do?
Not until I really hit my last couple years in high school and college, when I started studying. I got my undergrad in philosophy, and so I started to think about things a little differently. And with the art background too, then it kind of came to me in a roundabout way, that way. And then I really fell in love with books, and I had a part-time job in college at the local library, and that's where that kind of love for libraries and that career path kind of opened up to me.
What'd your mother do?
So she was, for a while, she worked in hotels at like a front desk kind of reception, and then she went to nursing school, but she has always had chronic migraines. So growing up my entire life, it's always been maybe once a week or once every other week. She's been down for 2 or 3 days with sunglasses on, curtains drawn, like very, very painful migraines.
Does she have light colored eyes by any chance? Are they brown like yours?
I think they're brown like me. Yeah. I'm a touch colorblind, so I'm not so great with colors.
Is that right?
But
yeah. You're touch colorblind.
Yeah, it's another fun thing about me. Yeah.
And that's why you like art?
I like drawing. Black and white ink is great.
Okay.
I've been trying to do a bit more with color lately, but matching colors. I can see colors, but I can't tell what they are. So when it comes to like matching the color to like the wood or something, that's hard for me to parse out. But so yeah, she she was involved in that. She went to nursing school, but when it came to doing her clinicals, it was really hard to be able to complete that. And so she didn't finish up her nursing degree. And for the most part, she's always just been kind of taking care of my brother and I while my dad was working for the weather service. So she is now a loving dog mother.
Okay.
And she
How
keeps
many
in
dogs
touch.
do you have?
Just one,
Just
yeah.
one, okay.
Yeah. On a kind of Cocker Spaniel Poodle mix.
Yeah.
Very smart. Yeah.
Do you talk to your family often? I mean, like your brother and your mother and father?
I try to, yeah. I think with the pandemic, I think it's been more so. I think everybody's just really kind of building that into their schedule, I think.
How are they doing, by the way?
They're doing well, yeah. No coronavirus. They got both of their vaccines pretty early.
Even your brother?
Even my brother, yeah.
Okay.
But for the most part, both of my parents, they often would stay home and just relax at home. So the pandemic wasn't a huge annoyance.
Didn't change
in
their
that way.
lifestyle so much.
Yeah, I mean, shopping was a little more difficult, but for the most part, yeah, they just always stay home.
So you didn't get involved in any kind of physical sports, basically?
Physical sports, no. I was not an active person until about last year, and then I started to get very active recently.
In what?
I'm doing a lot of running now, so a lot of trail running.
Okay.
So kind of out in the mountains, running these distances. So next month I've got a 100-kilometer that I'm going for.
Are you running with David?
I've done a couple times, yeah.
With David and Antonio?
Yeah, David and
You
Antonio.
brought him out, or they brought you out?
I brought David out one time. They usually do road running.
Yeah.
I know Antonio does some trail running, but I really have gotten to love the mountains here in Japan. Michigan is completely flat, so mountains were never a thing for me growing up. So I've really been coming to learn to love mountains here in Japan.
Okay. So we got you. So you went to college. When you went to college, you said your major was psychology?
Philosophy.
Philosophy. And you had one major? Or did you have more than one?
Philosophy major and then an English literature minor.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. So which do you go towards more right now? Because you're in your field. I mean, that's pretty rare.
In a way, yeah. I mean, the philosophy degree, it's one thing that when you are a philosophy student, there's a lot of time spent trying to argue for the value of studying philosophy or studying the liberal arts in school, where as things become a bit more professionalized and with that fear of student debt there, for people choosing to go into college, you really have to make a careful decision because you're going to get this debt and you need to provide for yourself. And do you do something that's a little more skill-based that'll kind of put you in a pipeline towards a job, or do you study something that you're very passionate about? And so philosophy was really great at giving you the bones for being good at kind of everything. I think you learn how to set out arguments, you learn how to communicate clearly, you learn how to consider different viewpoints, you learn about what's right and what's wrong and what it means to be a good person and really, really what that means in how you behave day to day. Like being a manager, I have really drawn a lot from that philosophy study. Into my life.
Did you leave college having student debt?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
But I went to a community college for 2 years and then a state university for my next 2 years. So I did it kind of the value way.
The value way, okay.
Yeah.
I see what you said. So you didn't come out with that. You didn't have a tremendous amount.
Compared to my
peers,
right? Yeah. Compared to my peers who have gone to like big universities, I think.
So were you able to get work as soon as you finished college?
I did, yeah. So I got lucky in that I was working at my library already, and I just kind of worked my way up over time in the Grand Rapids Public Library downtown, and I was working in the reference and adult services section, and transferred over to we've got like the 4th floor of the downtown building is our local history, archive, and genealogy floor, and so when I transferred into that, I really came to love that kind of research and that archiving skill was something that I felt like I really love libraries, but I think this is something that I could do that would be helpful.
The history part or the genealogy part?
They often go together. Yeah, but both skills help the other.
Right.
Yeah.
But you were doing both?
I was doing both. So I brought something.
Okay.
Well, this came out of some of my research there, but this was a book that was published. So this was
picture, okay.
my interest in drawing and art and comics particularly, I was interested in the history of cartoons in my city, if there were any interesting cartoonists. So I uncovered this woman named Gert Van Houten, who was this incredibly talented cartoonist from about 100 years ago, and she was doing these daily papers on the front page of my local paper every day, almost every day, about our city, our local community. And so, and she went on to do a lot of fashion illustration, so really incredibly talented woman. And so I got interested in her comics, but in order to find out more about her life to do a biography, I had to do the genealogy side too, and I was able to find her ancestors and contact them in the city, and they had a whole collection of their grandmother's stuff in their basement that they lent out, including this picture of her on the back. And
wow,
they were so happy because someone finally found out about their grandmother.
You produced this?
Yeah. A friend of mine published it. So
but you're the one, all the information
but I put it together.
Put it together.
Yeah. So it was nice because she's an incredible woman, probably one of the earliest cartoonists in America in history, I would think. At least recorded. There's not much research on early cartoons, but she was doing a lot of stuff for like raising war bonds during the war. She was sent to DC to cover all the things going on there for World War I. And Grand Rapids was Michigan has always been a very industrial, part of that Rust Belt city. So she covered a lot of like women going into the factories as the men were going off to war. And,
for World War I.
Yeah, so
World
this
War
one
I,
here,
right.
to the men of Michigan. So she was really an incredibly talented person. So I'm very proud of this project to be able to celebrate her.
And this was your first project?
Yeah, that was one of the first
that you did.
Yeah.
This is beautiful. It is a nice thing to be able to do that. Have you done your genealogy?
I have done mine, yeah, and the DNA research as well.
Okay, so where's your family from?
So my family, my dad's side, goes back to Virginia, Kentucky area for like 600 years, 400, 500, a long time Americans in that area, that Appalachia area.
But they came from where?
And they came from kind of Sussex area in England.
Okay, in England, okay.
And then before that, kind of around Flanders. So my last name, Damron, comes from a French, like Damron, I think.
Okay.
It's changed a bit when they immigrated into the States, but it's a French-Belgian last name. So that Flemish area, northern Belgium, is kind of where I've been able to trace as far back as I could go. But that's where the DNA stuff comes in, because then you're trying to connect the two things. So comes from that, but then it's a part of this like R subclade who came from the Caucasus, the Yamnaya culture, this ancient pottery culture, and then back into the Fertile Crescent area, and then back to Africa too, where the original human was.
You've gone back that far?
So with the DNA research, it'll tell you
exactly.
It kind of starts with the first human being, and then you work your way forward, and then the genealogy, you're trying to like connect the two trees, So there's a gap still, but I think I've got both sides for the most part.
What about on your mother's side?
So my mother's side is her her mother and her mother's mother are French Canadian, and they come from Montreal. Before that, from France, and then her father's family is more like Swedish. But her father and mother split. Her biological father left the family when she was pretty young. So I don't know what he looks like. I'm not sure if he's still alive or not. I really don't know much about him at all. But my DNA research showed, based on the breakdown of my ethnicity, then there was some Swedish in there. So I'm assuming it's from him because I know the other sources of the other parts of my tree. And it's definitely not from there, so it must have been from him. So
have you gotten other people in your family involved so that they start to do, further away than your immediate family?
Yeah.
So that you can start to see how.
Yeah, so there was, especially in the 70s and 80s, so Americans really, really love genealogy. I think because...
Especially the Mormons.
And the Mormons have done some incredible stuff. That Family Search database is amazing for free. It is incredible how much you can get from that. But yeah, the sealing ritual in the Mormon faith is interesting. And it requires that research.
The sealing
it's something...
I've heard about it before.
Where
have you been through the lessons? the 7 lessons of Mormons give for anyone that's thinking about
No,
Mormonism?
I'm not of any faith. No,
But neither am I.
but
I've been through their 7 lessons.
I haven't done the 7 lessons, but I know like in the library we would often get a lot of Mormons coming in, or like LDS folks, because the sealing ritual is kind of you are binding yourself to your ancestors.
That's right.
And in order to do that, you need to have like a record or some kind of document so that you can bind yourself to that person. And kind of like, I think it's to ensure that they are
right, because you have to
heaven.
pray for them and continue, or they can continue to ascend.
Believe so,
Right.
but you'd have to ask them to double check.
That's
But
right.
so for Americans, they really, really love it. And so in the 70s and 80s, it was a really, really big hobby for a lot of older people. When you're getting to a certain age, you're starting to think about your heritage and you want to get that stuff recorded down. Or as an American, most people are immigrants, and so you want to know, like, who am I? Am I more German, or where did I come from in the Middle East, or something like that? So Americans love doing this kind of stuff. Whereas in Japan, because I held a workshop here, and it's like, oh, Japanese, of course. The questions, why would you ask the question? Yeah. So the databases and the research and stuff there is really great, and so we would always encourage people, if you can, please talk to your grandparents, because probably they've already done most of the work for you. And so with my family tree, with reaching out to some of those extended relatives, I found that my father's mother's sister got really into it, and she did the whole thing all the way back, and this was like the old school genealogy before the internet, before those databases.
You had the tree and you actually had
where she had to go to visit the different libraries, pull the books out, contact the county clerks in each different city, and then she made her way over to Europe and went through the church cemeteries, and like that's hardcore genealogy.
What about the genealogy do you really enjoy? What makes you, I mean, when are you the happiest?
I think it's interesting to know. That's a good question. I think there's an aspect of gratitude to it, because I like to think about, the reason why I'm here, and to think about all those people before me and all the work that they had to do, and what their lives must have been like. And I like feeling connected to a place too. I think that's why I like a lot of the local history research, and why I've done a lot of the research here for Tokyo is because I'm here, and I really, really love that ability when you're walking down the street and you can kind of see what was here before. I love that feeling. So to go through a place and to have this kind of magic history glasses that you can see over time what was where and what it used to look like, and that's the reason why this building is here. Did you know that that's what this building was? And that kind of thing. So
That's right.
I really like those layers.
Do you ever have the feeling that you like knowing what you know most people don't know? Yet they're moving around it all the time. I get.
There's an aspect of that, but I think as a librarian, naturally, you're just always learning stuff every day. That was one thing I liked about my reference job is we'd answer phones all the time, and before the internet, if you had a question, you would call the library. And
That's right.
you didn't just Google like what is this? You'd call the library. So we still have all those people still calling the library all the time, and so people asking when's the best time.
Did they do that here too?
Here, no, because our library is never really known for reference. It was never really a reference place. We had encyclopedias a long time ago, but everyone just kind of Googles now. But questions like when's the best time to plant watermelons, or what does this word mean?
And you look that up.
And you'd be like, okay, just a moment, I'll find that information for you, and you pull out some books, do some research real quick.
So how many years did you do that?
That was about 2 years, and then it was 2 years in the archive.
Okay.
And then here it's been about 4 years. Next week it'll be 4 years. Yeah.
What brought you to Japan?
I came to Japan originally with my ex-wife. We recently separated, but we both came here kind of on a, we both had grown up in Grand Rapids our whole lives.
So she's not Japanese?
She's not Japanese, no. She studied Japanese in school, and she had visited here on study abroad trip in college, and we had our honeymoon here, and we really came to like Japan, and just thought before we get settled down in an area, we should try to live internationally if we can. And so we came here. I got an English teaching visa, and I was working on my master's degree at the time for library science. So in the States, if you want to work full-time as a librarian, to actually say that you are a librarian, you have to have that master's degree. So the plan was come to Japan, do this for a year, finish up my master's online, and then head back and then look for a librarian job. and then just kind of stayed longer, and this position opened up, which is what I was looking for, some kind of full-time librarian position to do it in Tokyo in an English library. I was very lucky, just in the right place at the right time. So I did that and just still been here.
No kids?
No kids.
Okay.
Yep.
I'm sorry to hear about it. Well, none, I guess shouldn't say I'm sorry. Because
No, it's okay. Yeah, I think it was tough, but I think it was the right decision for both of us. So.
Right. So what are you doing? What are your plans for the future? I mean, you've been doing this here. I mean,
I'm not sure. I think a part of me still is pulled towards archives, especially since my master's degree, my specialization was in archives. So I think a part of me is still really interested in that kind of work full time. But I do like leading a library as well. So I've been really enjoying this job. I'm not sure about the future really. We'll see.
You've
how
been
it
here.
goes,
You've been in Japan only 4 years.
5 years. So
5 years.
yeah, 1 year teaching English, 4 years here at the library.
Right.
Yeah, so a part of me has been kind of toying with the idea of going back to the States, maybe working in a larger city archive or maybe a university archive, depending on the collection.
And a part of me wants to see here because this is your baby now.
Especially with the anniversary coming up, I mean, I'd like to see this project through, or at least get it in a good shape, because it's been so sprinkled throughout the club for so long, at least to get it all together and packaged well, so that I'm comfortable handing it off to the next person, at least something like that too. So, yeah, I'm not sure.
Well, how long do you think that would take?
Oh, it's a never-ending project. Yeah, you always find new stuff all the time. But I've got a rough index now of the things. The inventory is put together. It's boxed and foldered now, which is more comfortable. But with the plans for the immediate future, I know that we're working on a gallery exhibition downstairs, possibly next year, to do a whole history of the club.
Oh, it's going to be in the Fred Harris?
In the Fred Harris Gallery
Oh, that'd
downstairs.
be beautiful.
So we're hoping to put that together. So I'm working with the CCAC group right now. We've identified which items, and we contacted a couple different universities up in Tohoku about the former daimyo that used to live on this property. And so we've got the different panels put together. We just have to line it up and get the statements put together and then pass it on to Comp to design the panels. So it's getting there, and then that'll work as kind of the bones of a history book to come out later, hopefully by the 100-year anniversary. But
Wow, I really like this. You really like doing this. That's fantastic.
I think it's important
Yeah.
just to, 100 years is a long time. That's quite an accomplishment.
And a short time.
Short time too, yeah.
Short time and a long time.
Something to
That's right.
celebrate.
Because so many of us are making it to 100 now.
Mm.
So many people are getting there. My mother's 90, turned 93 this year,
Mm.
and in good health and still driving, which I asked her, please stop doing.
Yeah.
And it's just what would you like to leave this way?
I think just with story, with history, with books, with stories, something over time that I've come to learn is I think it gets back to your question about why I enjoy doing this stuff, is I think it's important to, if you want to be a better person, if you want to be a kinder person, if you want to be a more interesting person, then you need to expose yourself to stories, and you need to read all sorts of different books, not just the same kind of stuff. You need to talk with all sorts of different people. You need to, just like a healthy diet of food, like you need to make sure that you're giving yourself that nourishment. And a part of that interest in archiving and doing that history research is to make sure that those other stories aren't forgotten, just to make sure that those are still there too, to help you understand your choices, where you're at now, why we're here, why things are like this, all those kinds of things. So I think it's really important to,
One more thing, before I close, before I stop this, you find yourself being pretty neutral on most subjects or most issues, or do you try to
like politically? Or just
any kind of way? Do you try to stay neutral so that you can absorb more, or do you? Because I'm getting that kind of feeling, like you might have an opinion, but you won't express it readily because you don't want to stop someone from giving you more information.
I think that it doesn't hurt to have more information. And I think if you immediately close yourself off to sources of information, then I think that that's not healthy. I think it's good to expose yourself within reason. I think that there's definitely
times when you need
to exercise some judgment. But I think that Personally, I'm definitely a lot more liberal, maybe further left of liberal. I think the library in itself is kind of a socialist organization. I mean, we pay taxes to support a library. If libraries didn't exist and we were to propose the idea of a library, I'm not sure if it would be passed by the community now, you know, the idea of what the library is,
of course,
you know. So, and I think it's very critical now too. It's one of the last free places in a city that you can go to just to be and to learn more, and where you're not expected to spend money or sign up for anything. It's a very neutral place, and it's very important to collect all those things and make them available too. So I think that knowledge is power, exposing yourself to all of the stories, it's very, very important. But I think also you need to think about doing the right thing and what it is to be a good person, and how do you care and really empathize with other people, and what does that look like in day-to-day work. And
well, how does it look to you?
I think that, one is listening and patience, and those kind of just basic, niceties is important. Working in the library, it is important to stay neutral. I think, especially if you're in a supervisory position, because libraries are in a precarious state right now when it comes to funding.
That was something I was going to ask about too.
Yeah.
What is the state of libraries globally?
So right now, they're growing, and the internet has made access to a lot of things much better. And the pandemic, in a way, has been very helpful for libraries. So actually, our circulation statistics has been up by 10 or 15%.
Just here in the club?
Just here at my library, yeah.
Okay.
So people are reading much more, and the kids have been plowing through books like crazy lately. So, which makes sense if you're stuck at home and you need to stay home. Then
so actually, libraries are doing really good now.
So libraries are doing well, but libraries have always been very, very good at serving their community and being adaptable and changing. So, before the internet, you had all of the resources that you needed there. So if you had a question, you would go to the library and you'd be able to figure it out. That was that place to access that knowledge. Whereas now, you don't necessarily have to go to the library or call them to figure it out. So really, they kind of pivoted over to this concept where now it's not so much about the books in the library, it's this community space with those resources that you need there. If you need a meeting room, if you need a place for a speaking event, or if you need a workshop space, or if you need to do some kind of event with children, or a volunteer drive, or some libraries are getting really creative, they're circulating suits and ties for interviews. So maybe if you cannot afford a suit for an interview, you can go into New York Public Library, you can check out a suit and a tie, and go to your job interview, and then bring it back when you're done. Circulating fishing poles. One library circulates cake pans, so instead of having a bunch of cake pans in your kitchen.
I've never heard that.
So it's this concept now of what do you need and how can I help you get that? Is it the space? I can get you the space. Is it just quick answers or research? Do you need help finding your local representatives? Do you need help trying to figure out which tax forms you can put together? I'm not a lawyer, but I can help you. I can point you to the right direction at least. You need help just getting a resume together, or you need help learning how to use a computer. A lot of people don't know. With the virus, I know for a lot of libraries in the States especially, a lot of people have been furloughed or they've lost their jobs and they're needing to find something else. And a lot of librarians are really helping them navigate whether it's getting on unemployment or looking for a new job or something like that. So libraries have always been, it's not about the books. The books are definitely key. They're very important. Books have been here for a long time. It's not going to go digital or turn into ebooks or anything. Now it's something like 75% of people still prefer physical books.
Yes.
Ebooks, it's a great supplement. Audiobooks, it's a great for people who prefer audiobooks. Definitely make sure it's available. But that's the purpose, is to make that stuff available, to make those resources available. And so it's always been about what does my community need? How can I help them get that? And same here at the club too. It's a little different. Being within a private club, it's an interesting kind of library to run. There's not many libraries like this that are kind of a private library in a way.
And it's a general library, basically. It's not any particular genre. It's in general. And you just added something to it. You showed me the other day. This online, actually. You said you had a physicist come. She signed your book.
Oh, the TAC Talks too.
The TAC Talks
so
too.
I was really happy with that. So that was an effort of putting together a club speaker series. So before in the past, the library was doing more book-related talks,
Mhm.
and then other committees were doing their own speaker series events
Right.
too.
Right.
And it just came to a head in a way where you could look at the immediate calendar, the immediate months coming up, but you didn't know what everyone was looking at further out in advance or commitments that they were making then. So there were times where there would be two interesting, awesome events, but they'd be in the same week.
Right,
And the
right,
members
right.
have to choose
That's
between
right.
two really
That's
great
right.
events. So it would, in effect, kind of split the audience, the potential audience.
Mhm.
And this is just an effort of trying to get everybody to work together. Everybody knows fascinating people here at the club, and so why not try to pull all those resources together, line it up in a really nice, orderly schedule,
Mhm.
offer a season pass if we can. So now we've got a season pass option for the fall season. So for the price of 3, you can attend all 6 events if you'd like, as a kind of
And
thing.
but you also have them recorded so that.
And we have them recorded too. Yep.
Right, right.
Yep.
And that's free then, isn't it?
That's free. Yep.
Right.
So that's been helpful too, to have that archive. We can send that link to other potential
Mhm.
speakers and just say, this is what it
Since
looks
we've
like.
been doing, right? So,
If you're interested, this is kind of, you can get a vibe from this.
so you told me it's similar to like, it's our own, instead of TED Talks, they're TAC Talks.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's been growing. It's been great. We're trying to look for sponsors now to sponsor the series so that we can get a little more money for speaker fees.
No, how does that work?
So we're working with our club sponsorship coordinator now. But the idea is we have the guest studios, we've got some amazing restaurants, we've got a really interesting facility. We could potentially fly people in and have them stay here, speak to a sold out ballroom, and then feed them in the restaurant, maybe have a VIP thing afterwards too. So
So what's a sold out ballroom? How many people is that?
uh,
Because right now with COVID,
with COVID
it's
now,
half
it's,
of, it's
yeah,
half of what it would have
it's
been
about
before.
80, 90 now with the social distancing.
Is that we were still doing that? Even if most people have been
With social distancing, yeah, so the policy is still
okay,
in
so
place.
still in place,
Yeah.
okay. So yeah, if we can, most we can do is 90 people. If it's gonna be a sit down.
If it's going to be sit down event, yeah.
Right.
But I think full capacity, it's something like 300 or so.
Or more, standing
Yeah,
500,
yeah.
yes, we can do that.
So that's kind of the long game that we're playing with this, is ideally we can get a sponsor that's working together with us really well, and maybe this is something that people want to join the club because they get access to all these interesting people
That's right,
coming in
that's
and out of
right.
Tokyo. And there's no reason why we couldn't do that. You know?
And generally, how long would they stay? Okay, they'd be flown over,
Mm,
depending on how famous they are,
mm,
depends on what class they come.
Mm.
So they come over
mm.
and they stay for how long? Maybe a week?
Could be a week. So it could also be maybe we're working with other institutions too. So this is something that the international schools do.
Exactly.
Is they'll bring a kids book author in,
And
and they'll tour all the schools, and then they'll hit us along the way.
Exactly.
So if I can also
But
expand that
we
network,
pay a little something to have them come.
yeah. So they could be split amongst the institutions too.
Right.
So it takes some work to kind of get it all together to get the infrastructure. So that's kind of where we're at now. Is we're just building the brand. It's just becoming known.
Mhm.
The members now are starting to understand what the TAC Talk is. We're getting to that next step now. We just need a healthy turnout to attract the
How long have
sponsors.
we had it? So how long has it been?
It's been about a year now.
A year
So
now.
first one was last September, and we had a coronavirus panel with some medical professionals in the community to come and talk about it.
That's interesting.
But we've had ultra runners, we've had astrophysicists,
Right.
we've had one of the world's leading scholars of Japanese swords come in, and he brought some swords in.
Didn't we have an astronaut once?
We haven't
That was
had it
the TAC
yet,
That wasn't for the TAC.
but
Talk,
maybe
that was for-
February we may have an astronaut.
That's right.
Yeah, next year.
Wow.
So, yeah, all sorts of interesting journalists coming through. So there's a lot of really amazing, interesting people in this area.
Mhm.
So just trying to grow that network and get in touch, and always looking for recommendations too. So
Drew, thank you so
Yeah,
much for
thanks.
taking the time.
Thanks.
This has been a pleasure. I want to thank all of you for watching this. Make sure that you press like, subscribe, and never forget, it's all known. Continue to reach for the stars, and you're too blessed to be stressed.